The night wind blew softly across the lake, rippling the surface of the water. I stood there, facing Prescott, and for the first time in all the time I'd known him, I didn't know what to say. Not because I had no answer, but because I had too many. I don't want to stop. That sentence still echoed in my head, so clearly I could hear every breath he took when he said it. Prescott. I started, then stopped. He didn't push, just stood there waiting. That made everything harder. I'm not good at this kind of thing, I said honestly. Neither am I. Prescott replied immediately. I'm serious. So am I. I exhaled, glanced down for a second, then looked back up. What exactly are you talking about? What, specifically? Prescott didn't answer right away. He took another step forward. The distance between us now, close enough that I could see every detail of his face, his eyes slightly darkened, lips faintly pressed together, and the way he was trying to stay calm. I don't know what to call it, he said slowly, but I know this feeling isn't like anything I've ever had before. My heart beat faster. Since when? I asked. Prescott smiled faintly, but his eyes stayed serious. Do you want the honest answer? Always. For a long time. I froze. How long? Since you argued with the psychology professor last year, he said, as if recalling a very vivid memory. You stood up in the middle of class, told him straight to his face that he was wrong, and weren't the least bit afraid of losing points. I laughed softly. That was a bad idea. Maybe. Prescott shrugged. But I thought, damn, this guy genuinely doesn't care what people think. I do care. Yeah, but not the way other people do. A silence. I started paying attention to you from that moment. Prescott continued. And gradually, I realized I was always looking for you in a crowd. Always noticing where you were. I swallowed. And last night? I asked. Last night. He exhaled. I couldn't take it anymore. Couldn't take what? Pretending. Prescott looked straight at me. Having to act like I felt nothing when I was around you. The air seemed to thicken. I didn't plan on saying it. He added. Not now. Not like this. But you said it anyway. Yeah. A tired smile appeared on his lips. Because I'm exhausted. I understood. God, I understood completely. Quinlan. Prescott called my name, his voice lower. Do you feel anything? That question. I knew it was coming. I just didn't think it would come so soon. I could say no. Everything would be simpler. We'd go back to how things were, two acquaintances, talking occasionally, nothing complicated. Safe. But I looked at Prescott, and I knew I couldn't lie. Yes, I said. Just one word. But enough. Prescott said nothing, but I could clearly see it. His shoulders relaxed, as if he'd just set down something very heavy. How long? He asked, echoing my question back at me. I smiled faintly, shook my head. Not as long as you. So since when? I thought for a moment. Last night. Really? Yeah. I shrugged. When you called me at 2 in the morning. Prescott frowned slightly. One phone call was enough? Not the call. I looked at him. The way you said I didn't know who else to call. He went quiet. I don't know why. I continued. But in that moment, I felt like I mattered. You always matter. Prescott said immediately. My heart skipped a beat. Don't do that, I said. Do what? Say things like that. Why? Because I'll start to believe it. Prescott moved closer. Then believe it. The distance between us now. So close that a single small movement would mean touching. I could feel his breath. Warm. Near. Dangerous. Prescott. I whispered. Yeah. What are we doing? I don't know. He answered, his voice as low as mine. But I don't want to stop. That phrase again. This time it didn't frighten me. It made me want to take one more step. I should have stepped back. Should have kept my distance. Should have thought it through. But instead, I stepped forward. Just a little. Enough for the distance between us to disappear. Our lips were so close I could feel the warmth, but we still weren't touching. One moment. One breath. One choice. Are you sure? I asked. Barely a whisper. Prescott didn't answer in words. He closed the last remaining distance. And when our lips met, everything went silent. No sound of wind. No sound of water. Nothing at all. Only feeling. Warm. Gentle. But enough to make my heart feel like it might burst. The kiss wasn't deep. Wasn't rushed. It was simply a confirmation that everything we had just said was real. When we pulled apart, Prescott didn't go far. He was still there. Close. Hi, he whispered, as if meeting me for the first time. I laughed, my breathing not quite steady. Hi. So, what are we now? I looked at him. That question. I didn't have an answer right away. But this time I wasn't afraid. I don't know, I said. But I want to find out. Prescott smiled. A real smile. No defenses. No pretending. Yeah, he said. Me too. We stood there a while longer, saying nothing more. But this time, the silence was no longer a void. It was a beginning. I don't remember how long we stood by the lake after that. Only that, by the time we finally walked back to the dorms, Prescott's hand was in mine. Not gripping tightly. Just a light touch. But enough to make me acutely aware everything had really changed. And this time, there was no going back. Are you sure you're okay? I asked when we stopped in front of Prescott's dormitory building. He glanced at the main entrance, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face. Yeah. Prescott said, I can't avoid them forever. I nodded. Tonight. You can still come back to my room. I added before I could think it through. Prescott turned to look at me, the corner of his mouth curving up. Are you turning your room into a refuge? If needed. That sounds appealing. I shrugged. I just don't want you to have to deal with it alone. Prescott's gaze softened. You know. He said quietly, you make this so much easier. Make what easier? Being myself. My heart clenched. Yeah. A pause. Not uncomfortable. Just full of things left unsaid. I'll text you later, Prescott said. Okay. He turned away, walked into the building. I stood there for a few seconds, watching him go, then made my way back to my own room. The room was dark and quiet. I closed the door, leaned back against it, and let out a long breath. Damn. I raised my hand to my face, rubbed it hard. The kiss. The way Prescott had looked at me. The way everything had happened so fast I hadn't had time to think. I should be panicking. Should be second-guessing myself. Should be asking what on earth I was doing. But instead, I just felt light, as if some part of me, a part 1D been trying to ignore for a very long time, had finally been acknowledged. My phone buzzed. Prescott. I picked up immediately. You're not in your room yet? I asked. I am now. His voice was quieter than usual. I'm inside. You okay? A brief pause. Not exactly. My heart tightened. Did they say something? No. Prescott exhaled. They didn't say anything at all. That sounds worse. Yeah. I understood that feeling. Silence can be heavier than any words. I don't know what to do. Prescott continued. I walked in and they just looked at me. Then turned away, like I didn't exist. You don't need them, I said. I know, he replied. But it's still hard. I sat down on my bed, staring into the empty room. Do you want me to come over? Prescott didn't answer right away. I don't want to be a bother, he said. You're not, Quinlan. I'm already putting on my jacket. I cut him off. On the other end of the line, Prescott laughed softly. All right, he said. Come up. When I knocked on Prescott's door, my heart was beating faster than usual. Not from worry, but because I knew everything between us had changed. The door opened. Prescott stood there, still wearing my hoodie. His expression softened the moment he saw me. You're fast, he said. I told you. I stepped inside. The room had 2 beds, one Prescott's, one his roommate's. The other bed was empty, but everything on the desk was still their books, a laptop, a few photos. The traces of someone who wasn't here, but still present. Where's your roommate? I asked. Prescott answered. Probably doesn't want to be in the same room as me. I squeezed his hand lightly. You okay? Prescott shrugged. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be. He looked at me, then smiled softly. You always say things like that. Like what? Like things that make me feel like I deserve more. I didn't know how to respond. Because I wasn't even sure I believed that about myself. Prescott stepped closer. You didn't come all this way just to stand there looking at me, did you? No, I answered. Then, he didn't finish. But I understood. I moved closer. This time, without hesitation, without any distance left to cross. We kissed, and it wasn't like the first time. Deeper, slower, and more real. I could feel clearly the way Prescott responded, the way his hands lightly gripped my shirt, the way his breathing shifted. And I didn't want to stop. But, Prescott, I whispered, pulling back just slightly. Yeah, we should. Slow down. He looked at me, not irritated, just thinking. Yeah. Prescott nodded. Maybe so, but he didn't move away. Just stood there, his forehead nearly touching mine. But not stop. He added. I laughed quietly. Not stop. A pause. Can you stay for a while? Prescott asked. Yeah. We sat down on his bed. Not doing anything in particular. Just sitting close to each other. Talking. Small things, classes, assignments, ordinary stuff. But the feeling was anything but ordinary. Every time our hands accidentally brushed, I noticed. Every time our eyes met, I didn't want to look away. And for the first time, I stopped trying to pretend that any of it didn't mean something. When I left Prescott's room that night, it was late. Not 2 in the morning, but late enough that everything had gone quiet. I walked back to my room, my hands still warm, and there was only one thought in my head. That phone call at 2 in the morning had changed everything. The days that followed were far from normal, at least for me. Everything around us stayed the same: class schedules, assignments, the familiar coffee shop, faces passing each other in the hallways. But inside, everything had shifted off its old axis. And at the center of all of it was Prescott. We weren't officially anything, no label, no definition, but we saw each other every day, sometimes for lunch, sometimes sitting together in the library studying, sometimes just walking around campus, talking about nothing, and sometimes, in my room, door closed, the outside world shut out. Are you actually reading? Prescott's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. I looked up from my book to find him sitting across from me. Laptop open, but clearly no more focused than I was. No, I admitted. Good. He closed the laptop. Because neither am I. I smiled. We're completely useless. Just today. You said that yesterday. And today I still believe it. I shook my head, closed my book. What do you want to do? I asked. Prescott tilted his head, thinking for a second. Not study. Very specific. Thank you. A pause. Comfortable. Just familiar. Quinlan. Prescott called. Yeah. Do you ever think about where this is going? I looked at him. That question had to come eventually. Yeah. I said. And? I exhaled. I don't know. Prescott nodded slightly, as if he anticipated that answer. Where do you want it to go? I asked back. He didn't answer right away. Just looked at me. Longer than usual. With you? Prescott said slowly. I don't want it to stop here. My heart quietly tightened. But, he continued, I also don't want to push you into something you're not ready for. I went quiet. Not because I didn't know what I wanted, but because I was trying to sort through everything I was feeling. Do you think I'm not ready? I asked. Prescott shrugged lightly. I think you're thinking very hard. I always think too much. I know. He smiled. That's the problem. I laughed along. And what about you? I asked. You don't overthink? I do. Prescott said. But not in that way. What way? I know what I feel. He looked straight at me. And I don't want to pretend it doesn't exist. That sentence. Simple. But so direct it left me with nothing to push back against. You make everything sound so easy. I said. It's not easy. Prescott shook his head. I just don't want to overcomplicate it. I seem to do the opposite. Yeah. He smiled softly. You're very good at making things complicated. I'll take that as a compliment. ISNT. I threw my pen at him. Prescott dodged it, laughing louder. The atmosphere lightened, but the question was still there. That evening, Prescott stayed in my room. Not the first time, but this time, it was different. We weren't just sitting and talking or watching something. We lay on the bed, closer than usual, without needing a reason, without needing an explanation. "You're very quiet," Prescott said, his voice low in the darkness. "I'm thinking," I guessed. "I'm thinking about what you said today." He turned to face me. "That sounds serious." "Maybe." A pause. "Do you want me to be honest?" I asked. "Always." I took a breath. "You scare me." Prescott didn't flinch. Didn't pull back. Just looked at me. "Why?" he asked. "Because." I paused, searching for words. "You're so certain." "And that scares you?" "Yeah." I nodded. "Because I'm not." Prescott was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out, touched my hand lightly. Not forcefully. Just there. "I don't need you to be certain right now," he said. "But you are." "Yeah." Prescott smiled faintly. "That's my problem, not yours." I looked down at our hands. His fingers lightly threading through mine. Natural. As if they always belonged there. "Do you ever think," I said slowly, "that we're moving too fast?" Prescott considered. "Yeah." He admitted. And I still don't want to slow down." I laughed quietly. "Of course. But," he squeezed my hand gently, "if you need to, we can." I looked at him. For a long time. Then I shook my head. "No." Prescott frowned slightly. "No? I don't want to slow down," I said. And this time my voice was steadier than I expected. "I just don't want to lose control." A very faint smile appeared on Prescott's lips. "Bad news for you," he said. "What?" "I think you already have." I exhaled, but didn't deny it. Because deep down, I knew he was right. That night, we slept closer together. No deliberate distance. No guardedness. Just two people lying side by side, sharing warmth and the rhythm of breathing. And as I drifted off to sleep, I realized I had stopped thinking about where everything was going. At least, not right now. Everything began to change. In ways I couldn't control. Not between me and Prescott, but in the world around us. "Are you and Prescott dating?" That question came on a Wednesday afternoon, while I was standing in line for coffee. I turned around. Ethan, a classmate, not particularly close, but someone I'd exchange a few words with, was looking at me with unconcealed curiosity. "No," I answered, faster than necessary. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Yeah." "Then why do I keep seeing you two together?" I shrugged. "Just friends." "Friends who hold hands?" My heart stopped. "You saw wrong." Ethan said nothing more, just smiled, that kind of smile that told me he didn't believe it. And that made me more uncomfortable than I wanted to admit. That evening I met Prescott in my room. He noticed immediately. "What happened?" Prescott asked when I closed the door harder than usual. "Nothing, Quinlan." I said nothing. Prescott crossed his arms, leaned against the desk. "You're terrible at lying." I exhaled, ran a hand through my hair. "Someone asked me about us." "What did you say?" "That there was nothing." A pause. Prescott nodded slowly. Okay. I frowned. "That's all you have to say?" "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know." I snapped. "Maybe some kind of reaction?" Prescott looked at me, not angry, just calm in a way that made me uneasy. "You want me to be upset?" "I want you to care, Quinlan," he said quietly. "I do care, but I also understand." "Understand what?" "That you're not ready to tell other people." I went quiet, because he was right, but hearing it said out loud like that still hurt. "I'm not ashamed of you," I said, my voice lower. "I know," Prescott replied immediately. "But you're afraid." I didn't deny it. "I don't want things to get complicated," I said. Prescott smiled softly. "Quinlan, things are already complicated." I turned away, not answering. He stepped closer. "Look at me." I didn't want to, but I did anyway. "We don't have to announce ourselves to the whole world," Prescott said. "But I also don't want to pretend we're nothing." My heart tightened. "I'm not asking you to change overnight," he continued. "I just Don't want to feel like I'm a secret. That sentence hit me like something direct and unavoidable. I don't think of you as a secret, I said, but the way you act says otherwise. Prescott replied, no anger, just the truth. And that was exactly what made it hurt more. I need time, I said, almost a whisper. Prescott nodded. Okay, he said, I can give you time. A pause. But don't make me wait forever. He added. I swallowed. Yeah. The days that followed weren't easy, not because we fought, but because a new distance had appeared. Not large, but enough for me to notice. Prescott no longer naturally took my hand in crowded places. No longer unconsciously touched me when others were around. He was still there, still close, but more careful, and that brought back everything he had said. I don't want to feel like I'm a secret. I started to realize maybe I had been selfish. One evening, I got a text from Prescott. Are you free? I replied immediately. Yeah. Where? The usual spot. The lake. I didn't hesitate. When I arrived, Prescott was already there. Sitting on the grass, looking out at the water. Like that first night. But not the same. Hey, I said, walking over. Hey, he replied, not turning around right away. I sat down beside him. A pause. Not as comfortable as before. I've been thinking a lot, Prescott said. My heart beat faster. About what? About us. I pressed my hands together. And? He turned to look at me, his expression serious. I don't want to lose you, Prescott said. But I also don't want to lose myself. I understood. I'm not asking you to change overnight, he continued. But I need to know which way you're heading. I looked out at the lake. Small ripples reflecting the moonlight. I thought about everything. The 2 a.m. phone call. The first kiss. The days we spent together. And my fear. Then I looked up. Straight at Prescott. Toward you, I said. He went still. But I added, I need to learn not to be afraid of that. A silence. Then Prescott smiled. Not big, but real. Yeah, he said. We'll learn together. And this time, when my hand reached for his, I didn't pull back. After that night, I stopped running away. Not in a grand, public declaration kind of way. I wasn't that person yet. But I began to stop denying. Small changes, but clear ones. Are you going with Prescott? Ethan again. This time we were standing outside class, and Prescott was right beside me. I could feel him not touching, but close enough to know. I took a breath. Yeah, I said. Nothing else. No explanation. Just the truth. Ethan looked from me to Prescott, then back at me. Oh, he said, slightly surprised. All right then. No negative reaction. Nothing dramatic. Just acceptance. And that was so much lighter than I'd imagined. Prescott said nothing until Ethan walked away. That's the first time you didn't deny it. He said quietly. Yeah. I should document this moment. Don't make a big deal of it. Prescott smiled softly. And this time, he touched my hand. Right there in the hallway. I felt it clearly. And I didn't pull away. Not everyone reacted like Ethan. There were looks, whispers, remarks that weren't quite mean enough to confront, but clear enough to understand. But what was different was, I was no longer alone. Are you okay? Prescott asked as we left class one afternoon. Yeah, I said, just a little loud. Want to go somewhere quiet? I know a place, I said. Prescott raised an eyebrow. Oh, you have a spot too? I learned from the best. He smiled. I like that. We went back to the lake, where everything had started. But this time there was no tension, no confessions, just familiarity. Do you notice? Prescott said, lying on his back in the grass, looking up at the sky. Notice what? We started here, he said. And now, everything's completely different. I lay down beside him. Yeah. Do you regret it? I turned to look at him. No. No hesitation. No wavering. Prescott smiled. Good. A pause. But this time it was easy. Quinlan. Prescott called. Yeah. I think. I like you. I laughed. You think? Yeah. He laughed along, still checking. So what's the verdict? Prescott tilted his head, looking at me. Very certain. My heart raced. Same. I said. No think needed. Because I knew. Time moved faster than I expected. In the weeks that followed, things gradually settled. Prescott's roommate. Didn't he become a close friend, but stopped making things difficult either. Other people either accepted it or stopped matching. And we found our rhythm. Not perfect, but real. One night, as we lay in my room, Prescott turned to ask, "Do you remember that call?" "Which call?" "2 in the morning," he said. "That night." I smiled. How could I forget? What if I hadn't called? I don't know. I looked up at the ceiling. Maybe everything would be different. Different how? Maybe we'd still just be acquaintances. Prescott was quiet. I don't like that version, he said. Neither do I. A pause. I almost didn't call. Prescott admitted. I turned to look at him. Why? Because I was scared, he said. Scared you wouldn't pick up. I smiled softly. I always pick up. I know, Prescott replied. That's why I finally called. I looked at him and suddenly understood. Everything we had now started from a very small moment. One phone call, one decision, one person who didn't hang up. I'm glad you called, I said. Prescott smiled. Me too. He pulled me closer, unhurried, without needing a reason, just naturally. And as I closed my eyes, I realized, for the first time in a very long time, I was no longer afraid of what lay ahead, because whatever happened, I knew I wouldn't have to face it alone. Sometimes, everything changes not because of one big event, not because of one bold decision, but simply a phone call at 2 in the morning, and one person who decided to answer.